What's up, everybody? Welcome to round. Oh God, where are we? 5?
Six.
Oh, round 6 already. Oh God, round 5 was very interesting. I liked the game. It was a cool matchup. But now we are going into the next round with Pedro Torres against Jacob Melender. So Pedro, of course, Oceania winner of the. Not the current one,
But the one before.
but the one before. So he's the first one to ever do it.
Yeah.
Right. So. Yeah, it's
so
good.
Yeah, they need to.
yeah, the judge is going to sort that out for them. Because we should now have the prize cameras working again. Sorry about that for the last round. But this matchup is a kind of a matchup that a lot of people are very familiar with if they play standard. Never mind expanded. Like, there's not that much going on in these two decks that is particularly weird.
Well, of course you have Exeggcute,
Yeah, but there's only 3 of them this time, so this is not quite Zoroark.
and I think, and
eggs.
also like Exeggcute is a bit different in this matchup because Buzzwole can
Yeah.
just pick them up.
It's like every time you pick one up and put it in the active position, your opponent's going, cool, I'll take 2 prize cards for basically no effort in comparison to KOing a GX. It's just, oh, that's 30 HP.
Yeah, but
Easy.
of course the Zoroark decks should be able to beat Buzzwole. Buzzwole gets some cool cards. In theory, they get Lucario, which is not in this deck here, and there's
Corinna.
actually a Corinna in Jacob's deck. He does play 2 of them.
The muscle
which
band
is-
as well, which is nice. It means they don't have to play the Regirock to kind of get rid of the basics early game.
And Muscle Band is really good because for non-GX Pokemon it also adds the extra damage. So
Yeah.
you can just almost always you will just get the knockout on the Zorua, which in standard if you only have, I mean you will get it anyways.
the Zorua, but like everything
but
else.
also the Zoroark, which copies.
Yep.
Can be quite annoying because it deals 160. With the choice band, that's a knockout already. You can one-hit knockout that.
But it's also things like any of the 70 HP basics, not that we see as many of them here. It means that just strong energy plus
Also,
muscle band and
stuff
go.
like Trubbish. There is a lot of things where this
yeah.
actually makes a difference. Next elixir, nothing yet.
I mean, this is where I think in Malmo you started a tally, right, on how many max elixirs hit. So it's a less common card in the expanded format. Everyone just basically playing DCE and going, that's 2 attachments. I don't need to use the max elixir, but just to keep the speed up, Jacob really wanted to see an early hit onto the Rockruff because it starts threatening immediate with Dangerous Rogue, saying, "Go ahead, set up a board. I'll still punish."
Yeah. So the first turn of Jacob looks really solid. He has a Rockruff, he has a Remoraid. He can attack with Jet Punch next turn. Of course, the Max Elixir would have been better if it hit, but of course it's always the same, right?
This is why I've sworn off ever playing this deck again, because whenever I play this deck, Max Elixir doesn't hit.
No, that's superstition. if you lose, you should be able to win even with no Max Elixir basically. But of course, sometimes you miss more, sometimes you miss less. Pedro's first turn. Also looking great. He got a Bridget. Now he's full with the Ross. Which will be taken up by Buzzwole quite fast, probably.
It's looking at this. We mentioned it wasn't Zoro eggs, but it's actually kind of a Zoro box. So it's doing things like it has the Seismitoad in here instead. It's a little bit more flexible than just straight up always looking for the one-hit KO.
But I don't think there's
That
anything
much,
else, right?
No,
It's
I think it
just-
might just be the one Seismitoad.
Just Zoroark
Looking at it
eggs,
again.
but there is no Executor, and
There's only
there's
3 egg, 1 shell.
and the other Zoroark is from Breakthrough.
Yeah.
He plays 2 Hex Maniac, which is a bit different. In the mirror match, of course, quite nice to have.
Yeah, well, the ability to just turn off abilities always very strong. In fact, even here against Jacob, it's very nice. It forces him to find draw support as opposed to using his Octillery. It means he has to find Guzmas or Lysanders to make sure instead of just using Bloodthirsty Eyes. It forces kind of extra things out of him just to be able to set up. But obviously, when you get to turn 1 Bridget, you can't turn 1 Hex. You have one or the other. So it means that this turn he gets to use Lele. See the second elixir now. And I think this
time
one is
he
hit.
actually gets it.
That's nice.
Also, he has Octillery in play, which is amazing if you get a turn 2. And he does play the White Lance, which is so strong in the current expanded because it hits for weakness on the bench.
And it just means
The-
that your opponent has to bench 3 Zoroark at a time because early on, otherwise they just go, yeah, but I'll just knock out all of them.
Yeah, almost all attacks which hit bench damage have in brackets don't apply weakness resistance for bench Pokemon, and Wildlands just turns that off.
Yeah, which is really nice when you're hitting into Zoroarks on the bench. Just like, oh yeah, sure, I'll have 3 prize
Especially
cards.
if Pedro doesn't evolve the bench one as well. Okay, now he has both, but if you're turn 1, your turn 1 needs to be quite good, which Pedro's was, and then also your turn 2 needs to be quite good. If either of these fail, then no hope left.
You just kind of get rolled over before it happens. But Jacob's only playing the 1, so with access to Corinna, that must be how he's going.
He can play Ultra Ball for Corinna, so it's not too unlikely to get it quite fast. And playing 2 of them is probably a bit weird.
It's only if you expect a lot of Zoroark, if you bother.
It's only in this matchup it makes sense, and I don't think it's still good because you can hit the Zoroark GX still for 60 on the bench, but well, it's definitely nice to have. Pedro doesn't get a lot of bench Pokemon. He can only deal 90 damage in this scenario. He does play an Hex Maniac, so no Abyssal Hand from Jacob. However, he does have a Max Elixir and hits it as well. As long as he can attach an energy from his hand now, that's really strong. However, he didn't attach one from his hand last turn, so probably there's none. I'm also sure he didn't play a supporter last turn, so...
Yeah, it looks like his hand's kind of awkward.
Ah, here's a Professor Sycamore, so maybe I messed it up. Yeah, so he gets another energy. His setup is amazing.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, when Buzzwole gets the opportunity to get rolling a little bit quicker, and like gets a little bit, with the elixirs, seeing the elixirs early, having them hit, finding your Octillery, you can just basically just go, right, okay, you have a few turns left, because there's a clock, I just start finding energy attachments, and things start getting KO'd. And we see 100, and it's a 60 to the bench, which is still quite relevant.
Yeah, it's like 160 for 1 energy. I mean, it's really strong. 60 damage means that a Jet Punch with a Strong and a Muscle Band. They're not enough, right?
I think you need one of the choice bands.
Choice band, yeah. So that's 80, 160, plus, that's...
Yeah, so it's just enough. So whilst he hasn't got a Buzzwole and a Strong Energy and a choice band in play right now, it's still quite a nice option to have. It also means that if he gets another 60 next turn, he needs less to finish off the Zoroark. He puts it in a very nice weak kind of position. Obviously it doesn't look too likely that we're going to get into the position where you can keep doing 60 to the Zoroark on the bench. Eventually, Jacob's going to just go, well, hang on, I could declare Knuckle Impact and just take 2 prize cards. This seems also pretty strong. We've got another N is played, and it looks like that's Computer Search and Ultra Ball in hand for Pedro, which basically means he has access to the entire deck, which means all of his one-off tech supporters, all of his one-off Pokemon, has the chance to go into things like Shaman, and by discarding a lot of his hand, and just keep digging through to kind of find as many resources as physically possible. So we start off with the Ultra Ball. Likely just to double check what target he'd feel most comfortable taking this turn. He can obviously hit fairly large damage with the eggs, coming back out of the discard to boost his chances of taking a one-hit KO on finishing off the Buzzwole, sorry, and puts him in a position where that's fine, but he has to commit a lot to do so, and it only takes one more attachment from Jacob to kind of just steam through the remaining Zoroarks. The interesting thing is, with Jacob's list, as well, just checked the Sudowoodo he plays, he only opts to play the Roadblock, and not also a copy of the, I forget the name of the attack, but it's a Computer Search as well after the Ultra Ball, so he gets to thin all of his hand out before playing the Shaman, make sure he gets one of the cards he wants, for sure. And I think he really does have to go for the Zoroark here, because
it still really hurts. He will get the knockout active anyways, so it's not that big of a problem, I would say. because the white lands will get knocked out as well. And there's only one white lands. There's already Master Band attached to the Buzzwole in play, so there is no other white lands coming. But he kind of wants to have a new Zoroark. The active one has 100 damage, and if there is a strong energy attached to the new Buzzwole, then that's a knockout as well, which is quite problematic. And here we see the roadblock, just Lele, yeah, whatever. Doesn't really need to be here.
It's just more of a okay, sure. Thanks for that.
I mean, it limits Jacob's option because there is Skyfield in play, and like, it's so unfair. Skyfield is supposed to be for both players, so at least both players get an advantage. Of course, Zoroark can use that advantage better, but both players get it anyways. Not with this guy in play. But just has only 4 bench Pokemon.
The tricky situation here is he took the Shaman on the Ultra Ball early in the turn, and now can't play it because he plays the Hex to get past the Jacob's roadblock.
But the active one will get knocked out.
Yes.
And then he has 1 bench space.
Yeah.
Free.
So he's taking it ready for next turn. Gets a couple of trades going.
Board position, not too amazing. He's not looking happy at all.
I mean, when you get to sit down playing Zoroark and you're against the fighting deck, immediately it's oh, okay, this is a little bit more awkward. And again, they don't play the Psychic Techs that you would play in Standard for this kind of matchup. You don't play the copies of Mew EX or Mewtwo. You just have to do it with your Zoroarks.
Well, but the reason you don't play these techs is because you don't need them, right? Like,
yeah,
Zoroark can just do 190 by its own. So there's quite some pressure on Jacob. He has a strong energy. He can only deal 140 currently. He doesn't play Regirock, so yeah, that will stay 140. Not enough for the knockout. 10 short actually.
And N, which means that he knew Pedro had the Shaman in hand, ready to start digging again if he takes the knockout. So he's just gone, right, find it again though. You have to make sure you can keep getting back access to this card.
Yeah, just an N, putting Pedro a little bit down. Jacob can still use his GX attack for the knockout as well, which is fine, I would say.
Well, he actually is only just 10 short, which is super annoying if than the maths correctly there. So being just a tiny bit short is always frustrating. But these lists aren't playing. Is there an Acerola? Yeah, there's one Acerola in Pedro's list. So you really want to make sure you actually finish the KOs. He also had the possibility of maybe finding energy to put on the Rockruff, ready to start threatening with the Dangerous Rogue, if he doesn't opt to use the GX attack this turn. So he reaches for the Lycanroc, just so that...
Oh yeah, this way he can knock out him.
Yep.
And then put 30 on the other Zoroark.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if he'd been hexed or not, but clearly with the Abyssal Hand and the Dangerous Rogue, the Bloodthirsty Eye, sorry.
Yeah, he puts 30 on the Tapu Lele. He only needs to draw 2 prize cards anymore. So if this Buzzwole doesn't get knocked out, then...
But he's playing a very high Guzma count, so it means that as long as this Buzzwole survives the turn...
Exactly, yeah.
He's perfectly happy.
It's quite unlikely for Pedro to fill his bench. I think he needs a Hex Maniac and then somehow fill his bench, and needs a Choice Band too.
Yeah, so he needs basically all of the pieces simultaneously to be able to take the knockout.
His hand doesn't look too amazing. I mean, he could use one setup for Shaman. He can use Shaman EX setup before using a Hex Maniac, potentially. But it doesn't seem like he has.
No, I think he's just gone, look, I need to hit so many cards this turn. I need to think of... The Field Blower there, starting the turn, is kind of a way of buying himself some extra time to think about, right, how do I sequence this hand to hit the things I need to hit? How do I draw as many cards as physically possible? So he has the Hex already there, and he has, I think, a Shaman in hand as well. Or he has...
I think it's a Shaman. He has a mono puzzle.
Yeah.
If he draws the other puzzle, then... Oh, what is he going for? Oh, he actually plays an N. So
he's not confident enough in taking the KO with his current board state, though he still draws 4 cards and has access to trade. And if he hits another Zoroark, he has access to 2 trades. So he's actually in a really kind of fortunate position where...
There's
Jacob draws enough cards.
Jacob draws 5.
Yeah.
And if he gets... wait, how many? He only plays one Tapu Lele.
And he has four Guzma.
4 Guzma.
So it's very...
quite likely.
Yeah. And just
and
the pass.
Pedro just passes. He has an Ultra Ball in his hand, so he can actually draw 5 extra cards. But just the Guzma won't win him immediately because he has no Floatstone anymore.
Yeah.
So he has a Guzma actually in his hand. And there is an Ultra Ball played.
Is it there? Well, I think he used it early, right? Did he use it early? Or did he have to discard it early?
What do you mean?
The Lele. Did he use it early on?
Yeah, he used it.
Yeah,
it was discarded
yeah.
when the roadblock Sudowoodo from Pedro came into play.
So this is also quite nice.
So unfortunately he didn't get a way to retreat. Of course every Pokemon on his bench has more than one retreat. So the energy couldn't help him and he didn't get the Floatstone. Kind of unfortunate, but there is still dangerous Rogue GX to take a knockout on almost everything.
Yeah.
From that point onward.
Well,
and now Pedro needs to have this turn where he takes a knockout and needs Jacob to not draw on energy. That time actually, Jacob only has one hand card, but if Pedro plays Hex Maniac,
he gets only up to 2, so it means that it's kind of likely that if that's the situation Pedro can play himself into, that maybe he doesn't find the energy, but it does force you.
Okay, he got the Verse Seeker. He already got a red card which doesn't do anything. He has 2 eggs in his discard pile, so you can take these first.
And he also has the Lele.
He still has 2 trades, right? Yeah, so he procreates twice, trades twice. He got double puzzle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's definitely...
That's plenty.
Definitely a knockout.
Yeah.
We know he has a choice band in his discard pile, so now he's making sure to not do anything wrong.
Yeah, it's right. Okay, I have enough eggs. I have enough Pokemon in my hand in case I need them. I have the choice band. Let's make sure everything is here before I commit.
Yeah, now we see Verse Seeker for Hex Maniac.
And you can see immediately Jacob's like, oh dear.
Yeah, so he needs the energy now. If he doesn't get it, then Pedro can just destroy him.
Yeah, just kind of sneak through. It's like, right, no, I've done that. I've counted correctly.
So there are 6, 7, 8. Now it's full, so he just needs the choice band. It's currently
double puzzle.
9 Pokemon in play, times 20. That's 180 damage. There's just 10 short, but choice band will help. He also takes double colors energy card or computer search. Yeah, he decides for the computer search.
This is one of the big reasons why Korra sees so much play, is there are so often boards where there are just so many Pokemon in play for Zoroark. He's just like, cool, I'll just draw most of my deck. So with access to the computer search next turn, basically whatever Jacob manages to find, he has ways of finding ways around it quite nicely. That was just pass.
Okay, so Jacob passes, roadblock gets activated again.
Trying to decide. He knows that with computer search, 2 trades, he has a lot of there's a lot of ways he can find, a VS Seeker for a Guzma.
But the Guzma doesn't win him immediately, right?
We have to be able to hit 200 as well, so it becomes kind of unlikely. But
well, it's impossible because the roadblock is still in play. And
yeah,
he can only
yeah.
overbench if he plays Hex. But if he gets a Guzma, he can take the knockout on Octillery. And he knows the opponent probably doesn't have an energy in his hand. So if he takes out... He either plays Hex and then takes a knockout on the active one, or he plays Guzma on Octillery and takes a knockout there.
And we'll see that he's going for the Hex of the VS Seeker. So he's just gone, right, fine, I'll deal with the Sudowoodo, because it basically means next turn I don't need Hex anymore. I can just take whatever card I need, take a single prize knockout if I want to. It gives him far more options.
He does play Battle Compressor. He's looking at his deck.
On a very thin deck.
There's 6 Maniac in his deck still left.
Yeah, and I think it's 2 compressors as well.
So he discards 1 Compressor, 1 Hex Maniac. He has 2 Skyfield, 1 Verse Seeker, and another card left, which I forgot.
But with so few cards left,
but
it
almost
means-
all of his, like the important cards are in his hand.
Yeah. And it means that he can basically draw his entire deck next turn if he wants to in trade. There's so few cards left now that he can basically guarantee. Cool. These are the cards left in my deck. I'll draw those, and then I can finish the game off.
Okay, so now he plays Hex Maniac. He needs to deal 100 damage. That's already possible. Now Jacob can't use Abyssal Hand. He didn't get the energy. Why did he put Artillery active?
Yeah, surely you just gamble on the fact that you might top deck the energy.
Well, if he still has the Guzma in his hand, of course, then it doesn't matter. But even then, if you put Lycanroc active, while still being very unlikely, there might be.
Okay.
Yeah, he does have the Guzma.
But he doesn't have.
He goes for a Shaman, and he can just pass. So now Pedro just needs a Guzma. Pretty sure he has a Verse Seeker in his deck. He can draw 4, which means he can draw his whole deck, and then he can just Guzma for the win. He's just making sure
He's like,
that it's not wrong, but I'm convinced. That
Yeah,
Pedro won.
if he plays the card, he can see the card this turn. I think he has VS Seeker and
He has a Guzma in his hand, yeah, so he
okay,
just Guzma.
he was just like, oh yeah, I can
wins.
just play
Okay,
this.
fair enough. Yeah, and this is why you don't need Mew.
Yeah, it's because you just
You win anyways,
Yeah.
right? So
it's when you have access to Skyfield, you can just boost your damage so much further than the 120 and 150 in standard to be able to take out basically one-hit knockouts on basically any card you need now. Makes the mirror all the more interesting. Means things like Lycanroc. It means you don't have to partner things with Glissapod because there's no weaknesses to hit. Because why bother? You just hit 210 anyway. So we see them having a little chat as well. It's always nice to see players being quite friendly to each other. Yeah, everyone's having a nice chat between games. It's at that point in the day where we're a fair few rounds in. Everyone's quite relaxed and quite enjoying it. Even if the game has an awful lot on the line for these two players, it's still they travel a lot.
and it's good to see these kind of. It's good to see
It's
a great game at the end. So the first few games were a lot of glacier. Not the best thing to feature, probably. But now we have a very interesting game. Just Buzzwole against Zoroark. Very interesting. In standard, it's always
It's a very
like the
different
fighting
matchup.
desk has the edge.
Yeah.
But here it's just you need so much to stop your opponent from just overrunning you. That the Zoroark deck's just. We talked about Mew EX, which is a very important part of Zoroark decks in standard, but here it's just why. Great! Mew deals 4 double colors and you card 100, 200 damage. Who else does that? Who might that be? With Skyfield, you don't need that.
I think Jacob had a couple of mulligans there, so Pedro has access to, I think, 2 more cards, which when it's a Zoroark deck anyway, is not really an edge that they need. They'll see a lot of cards eventually, so prize cards.
Yeah, they're upside down for Jacob.
It's
I think it's a Buzzwole, the
I
dark
see.
one.
Yeah, a level ball. Interesting to see the level ball, considering he already has access to Brooklet Hill, and he doesn't actually gain access to any. He only sees access to Oricorio.
Well, he
wouldn't.
gets Remoraid and he gets Artillery.
Yes, he can get the evolved. Yeah, good point.
So and yeah, Oricorio is
In some matchups.
probably I mean, Night March is still a deck for some reason. It didn't really do well because your opponent plays red card, Jetsis, red card Hex.
And you see they go,
Um,
oops.
even if you know that knock out every Zoroark which your opponent puts active, it doesn't matter because you can't get all the cards. You have 4 hand cards, you can use abilities, or you have maybe 2 hand cards or 1 hand card each turn. And if your turn 1 isn't great, then that's that already. Also, there are a few decks which just play Karen that still exists. So
Well, a lot of decks will prefer to go for the Toad Karen route to deal with Night March, because Toad has the versatility. Can kind of slow down a lot of decks. It was actually prized in the first game for Pedro.
Yeah, it was the last prize card.
Yeah,
but
it's not prized this time. There's a Skyfield, Bridget. I think that's an Ace of Roller. So nothing particularly awkwardly in terms of prized cards. It's nice to see Pokemon Communicator kind of making kind of a little comeback, swapping cards out, going, well,
yeah,
I don't need this one right now.
You play a lot of Pokemon, and also you usually have an Exeggcute somewhere. So you can just get the Exeggcute. Well, it's back in the deck, but whatever, it doesn't really matter. You can always trade it if you draw into it. But this way you don't waste any resources. Just a cool addition. And here we see turn 1 Tapu Lele. There's roadblocks, so that's it. If Jacob actually gets his white lands, which is not priced, we can see that. He can just grab the knockout on the Zoroark. And it's like, oh, whatever, I don't care.
Against Toad and Lele, he's like, yeah, Buzzwole's fine. Just chip away. So, I think Pedro opting to Chorus to draw himself 6 cards. Not actually playing any copies of the Cynthia, which would have been the other way of drawing that many cards for him this turn. And clearly he was holding cards that he valued too much in the matchup to want to discard. So it was just like, right, let's put those back for later.
And Scary Turn for 60. That Scary Turn is getting stronger and stronger.
It's gonna get to the point where that's actually the main attack for decks.
At some point it's expanded, maybe, when there's just like
insane damage boosts.
Yeah, Jacob uses Brooklet Hill, no Corinna yet, and he doesn't have supporter, so unfortunately he didn't get the white lands. So Pedro's still in the game. He did get a Battle Compressor. He has quite a big hand. He also has a Computer Search. He can Quaking Punch, putting even more stuff on Jacob's list of things he can't do right now. But it seems like he's going for the knockout, or not. Wait, he has 60 damage already, so 130 HP left, which means with 4 bench Pokemon, that's 10 short. So he would need to have a Skyfield and X-Maniac to take the wanted knockout here.
I think that was a Brooklet Hill there, just to double check what was in deck before playing any cards.
Yes. Yeah.
One of the reasons why Brooklet Hill is so good is that even once you are all set up, sometimes if you have a bench space, you're like, well, hang on, I'll double check my prize cards because I don't want to commit to something if I can't remember.
Yeah, checking prize card is really stressful. Even unimportant things are sometimes really important, and you can check for you can check your 60 in the 30 seconds you get. So just if your opponent plays Brooklet Hill, that just helps you to be sure.
Actually, and also for Pedro, it means he has access to Seismitoad whenever he wants.
I mean,
so
you can always just get it out of the deck. He actually goes for a Hexmaniac. What is his hand like? Oh boy, I really want to see that. So he uses Propagation, traits. Into an Ultra Ball. He needs a Float Stone and he needs an Hexmaniac. So he propagates, Ultra Balls. Oh, that propagation is crazy.
It's the ability to just go, right, all these cards that have discard effects, they're free now. It actually gets worse.
So we see again Computer Search. He can get a Float Stone. And then he needs Skyfield. He already has an X-Maniac, we know that. And then he can take the knockout. Yeah. So it's
just being able to
like, this is the insane power of the Zoroark and expanded.
There's no other deck that can really abuse the propagation ability to just go, right, okay, I will now draw a load of cards because of it and have access to all of my discards for free.
So now we see the Hex, then we see the Zoroark for the bench. Even as a Zoroark in his hand for next turn, here just a knockout. It's crazy. It's so much at once.
And it just puts an awful lot of pressure on Jacob. Now forced to find... Well, we know he didn't have energy and he didn't have support for the last couple of turns, so...
Yeah, especially the Hexmaniac won't help.
At least this time he has access to items. He has one Quaking Punch, so he has some of his deck available, but even then he's got to draw a lot of cards.
It's it's interesting how the game went from, oh, Jacob just needs white lands, to,
Oh dear.
I hope he doesn't lose in the next 3 turns or something. Well, I mean, the roadblock is still active.
No, it's actually not because of the hex. So he has.
Yeah,
same way to play
it's
what he wants,
it's still
but still
in
a
the
factor.
game.
Yeah. And at least he can deal with one of the Zoruas to kind of prevent Pedro from just having another crazy turn by establishing multiple trades, multiple propagations. It forces him to go, right, okay, you still need to use a supporter at some point if you want to draw some more cards.
Yeah, so here's just a very easy knockout from Jacob on the Zorua, getting some damage on the Zoroark. Pedro can use trade. So hard to pronounce, trade. And he has a Flowstone on his Size Method. He needs a big turn again to take the knockout here. And he doesn't have that many hand cards. The turn ones were still really different compared to the first game where Pedro had all of his Zorua
Yeah.
turn 1. And now Pedro only has 1 Zoroark, which has some damage. But let's see if he can get another big turn. And here we see him, the Hex Maniac, already not looking that great. But he just straight up plays it. 1 Zoroark.
It's a shame he couldn't find one of his
Exeggcute.
Sky Fields. He's like, oh yeah,
yeah,
I
it's
haven't got the
possible,
Sky Field.
yeah.
Now I can do it.
So he apologizes. He needs 1 extra bench Pokemon? Oh no, he doesn't. That's already enough. But he just puts it down anyways. Crazy.
just sat here watching this deck, just going, right, okay, this turn, Pedro can do whatever he kind of wants to do.
So I have, I play Unlimited quite a lot, and then often when the kids in the league ask me why there's no, like, they bring very old cards, and I'm like, yeah, you can't use it, and they're, why? And then I just play Unlimited 1 round, and they all understand and are very thankful. But for Expanded, you can just be like, well, do you want to play against Zoroark or not? And then you're like, oh, let's play against Zoroark. And it's just, oh, turn 1, 210, and you can't do anything. Great, yeah. That's why I
like,
play
this
the
is
game
fine.
too. And here, Jacob doesn't have anything going again. Ends his turn, Hexmaniac turns off, Sudowoodo's going back up. And at that point, Jacob still has a good winning option. If he uses Dangerous Rogue, he can get the wanted knockout. And then Pedro has no Zoroarks left. But now he can use Propagation twice, Ultra Ball, 4 Zoroark.
Well, it's one of the interesting things about propagation on Exeggcute is the wording of it. It says once per turn when this card is in your discard, which means every single time it goes back to the discard, you can reuse it.
Yes.
Which is why, even though he's used 2, he gets to use there's only 2 there. He gets to use it as many times as he wants.
Yeah, exactly.
It's where knowing the rules and the wording of the cards really makes a big difference to how you can approach deck building. Because you go, wait, hang on, everything's free now.
Yeah, especially in a lot of formats. Exeggcute would have been insanely good, but often if you just start with it, it will lose you the game because this 1 prize card is so valuable. But now, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, when everything's a 2 prize knockout.
Nothing matters anymore.
You just play Hexmaniac, trade a lot,
Exactly.
and keep winning.
Hexmaniac, red card, 210. Here's the Battle Compressor. Pedro didn't play Supporter, as far as I'm concerned.
Not yet.
So he can still use Hex. And
If he finds, and I think he had the Veer Seeker in hand, right? So he can at least take another prize card.
But it doesn't matter. He will knock out the Aura Courier and then he only needs 1 prize card. He found the second Zoroark. So even if the active one gets knocked out, still quite unlikely. He can actually use a normal supporter this turn, just to prepare for the next one.
Well, he's in a position, I think, where as long as he has access to Choice Band next turn, he's pretty happy. It means that if Jacob evolves, takes the KO, he can put enough damage on there to threaten things with things like a Lele, or to finish it off, depending on what energy attachments Jacob manages to find.
Ouch! And again, Pedro plays Hex. This time not to get a knockout, but just to put the other Zora on the bench, and of course to deny Jacob's options. He can still use an Octillery. And these Hex games, like, there's this 1 important turn where you can Hex. But with trade, you can always
basically Hex.
You can draw so much and then just Hex afterwards. That is not so important. So that's crazy. Jacob needs to evolve. Oh, he just Guzma for roadblock and passes.
Oh dear. Well, he basically says field blower or DCE, and the DCE is already in hand.
Or Guzma or anything. Yeah,
and that's
everything.
it. So very quick.
Yeah, that
games.
was a fast game. So Pedro wins. We can get him here for an interview, ask him about his deck, but I don't want to talk about Zoroark anymore. It's getting really, really problematic.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, I'll hex every turn and everything's fine.
Yeah, Hexmania, you see a lot of these Zoroark decks are built upon different kind of approaches. So you have very high on like red cards, and then you have Getzes.
Yeah, people who max out on the eggs to make sure they always hit them.
Yeah, and it's just having all of this at once, it's so strong.
Well, it has so many options. As a deck that gets to have so many cards in a turn access, it just becomes... You can play one-ofs and tweak the list to really precisely counter things that you need to deal with on that day. And it just gives you basically unlimited access to unlimited resources.
Yeah. So we will be back in a little bit with Pedro, talk a little bit about him, with him, how the tournament went. Until then,
wait
a second.
yeah.
See you in a bit.